In the age of social media and streaming, time is at a premium. So if you want to read more books, then follow this pretty simple guide. It's going to require some time, but with a little assistance from me, you can do it. The first thing you'll need to do is change what you think of as reading. Now, if you want to sit down and read physical books, then you're looking at reading about 3 hours per day if you want to get through 100 books a year. Simple math. The average book is about 360 pages. If you read a page every 2 minutes, that's 90 minutes per day to finish a book in 4 days, 3.5 days for 100 books a year. That's pretty tough. So, audiobooks are going to be your best friend. And if you don't think that audiobooks are reading, then feel free to leave me the most vicious comment you can below. But I listen to audiobooks. That's how I do the majority of my reading. And it's not going to be if you want to read, Infinite Jest or Dostoevsky. This is not, if you're high minded about literature, this guide isn't for you, okay? Because you're not going to be able to plow through Game of Thrones in a matter of 3.5 days unless you have the constitution of a marathoner, right? So, what you want to do is make sure you have an Audible listener, an audio membership. Audible, I use Libby for most of mine because I don't want to necessarily give Amazon every penny that I own. But Libby's a great way to listen to books. It's your local library. Now, find the time. That's tip number 2. You've got to find where are your pockets of time where you can read. You may not be able to spend a dedicated 2 hours in the evening with a glass of wine as you plow through the newest book, but you can listen in increments the way that I do. This is my daily reading schedule, and I manage to finish a book every 3 days or so. I wake up, and while I'm making my coffee, I put on my headphones. I love books. So I find things that I want to read and I want to know what happens next naturally. So I'm okay with waking up, putting on headphones, and getting started. It doesn't feel like a chore to me. So while I am making my coffee, getting my morning sorted out, I love to listen to about 20 minutes of a book. Then, while I'm getting ready for work, ironing my shirts, pressing my slacks, brushing my teeth, all that stuff, I'm listening to a book because I love it. So I get 20 minutes there and it helps me get through the mundane task that I can't stand. I also listen on my commute to work, which is another 20 minutes. And that's in an hour in a day. And that's before I even get to work. After work, I listen for an hour on my evening jog, whether you stroll or go to the gym, or let's say you don't work out, but you do the dishes, you fold clothes, you have chores that need to get done. An audiobook is a great way to accompany that. Stephen King is actually the person who turned me on to this in his book On Writing. He says, like, why listen to the same 5 songs over and over again while you're on the treadmill when you can listen to an audiobook? So I've been doing that for years. Now, that is 2 hours per day that you could probably carve out listening to audiobooks. Let's say the average book is 7 to 9 hours. We're looking at genre fiction. So if it's a mystery, it's going to be 7 to 9 hours, sometimes 10. You're getting through a book every 4 days if you just follow that. And if you're committed enough to reading, you can do that pretty easily. The other thing that you can do is increase the speed. You don't have to increase it by much to be able to sort of quantify or change the amount of reading that you get done. Even moving up to 1.25 takes a 9 hour book down to 7.5 hours. So you're looking at major growth there. I listen at 2.0 or higher with some books, especially if it's a narrator who speaks pretty slowly. So I'm able to cut the time that I listen to a book in half. And you can do the same. But it's like anything, working any sort of muscle. You got to start out small. You got to start out slow. You can't jump to a higher speed and expect to be able to understand what you're reading. So I would say start with 1.0, and all of the audio listeners that I see have a really cool incremental tool so you can move from 1.05 to 1.10, so on and so forth. As you get accustomed, you can find your level of comfort where you're still catching everything and getting every detail and actually reading the book, but not necessarily going at this pace. And that's because I enjoy it. This is not for the sake of the numbers. I love reading and I want to get through as many books as possible, not to prove anything to anyone, but because I love reading and I know that I have a finite number of books that I'm going to get through. So I'd like to see as many great books in my brain as possible before, the end. So let me know if this works for you, if this is something you feel like you can accomplish. If you want more tips and tricks, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to give more tips on how I read more so that you can read more because really that's why I'm here. Thanks for watching.